You're listening to Erik Wadell Pause. This is episode 16, Universal Skill Patterns. Today's episode will be about one of the 5 universal skills in our STAR framework. The universal skills are like characteristics of emotions that are present in every emotional situation. So we can shift our focus between these 5 universals depending on what the situation needs. Whenever we are looking for answers and we feel great responsibility, when we feel great real responsibility, when we feel that lives are on the line because of us, we will incessantly start looking for pathways and patterns. We want to find a way into the future. We want to make our people proud. We do not want to let them down. When I speak about patterns, I am referring to natural patterns. We are living beings. We are organic. We are biological. So we adhere to the same natural patterns that all biological life does. And if we study patterns in nature, we will find that some patterns are useful even when looking at our emotional health and looking at our emotional skills, looking at our possibilities and looking at our limitations. As we are looking for patterns and pathways for us and our loved ones, especially now, through these difficult times, these increasingly turbulent times. We want to find the patterns behind the order and disorder of things, so that we may find the best way. Oftentimes it comes down to damage control. Oftentimes it comes down to accepting that turbulent times what's the word in English? There are casualties in turbulent times, is what I'm saying. We must give up some things. We will lose people. We will lose things we treasure. A lot of it is about damage control, accepting that we cannot save everything. We have to prioritize. We have to make tough decisions. We have to make impossible decisions. Getting through turbulent times is not to soar above them. To get through turbulent times is just that, to get through the turbulent times. And when we are studying patterns, we want to look at patterns in a way that we're looking for good enough. We're looking for some simple principles that on average works very well. Some heuristics, you might call them, some rules of thumb. In turbulent times, our energy and attention is limited, so we will not be able to make as fine and detailed decisions as we might want. So when looking at patterns and how to navigate the turbulence, we will look for useful rules of thumb. And my attempt here is to initiate a discussion about what rules of thumb could be useful when it comes to patterns. And this is what I mean with what I mean by universal skill patterns, useful rules of thumb. One useful rule of thumb when it comes to patterns is that adversity and stress and difficulties have a tendency to come in waves there will be waves of increasing stress, and there will be these times between the waves when things calm down a little. So our first rule of thumb is that we ride out the waves patiently, and we do our best to rest when we are in between the waves of difficulty. Another useful pattern from nature we can use is accumulation. In nature, there is this tendency that if a substance or a population of animals or microorganisms or whatever, if they assemble at a point, then during the course of time, spots and congregations, accumulations of individuals have a tendency to self-replicate and grow larger due to stress. So if we look at us humans, we have a tendency to join larger and larger groups, and how we navigate these different groups is good to have in mind. So our second useful rule of thumb could be something like to keep track of what groups we are part of, and if they seem to be accumulating or decreasing in size. A third rule of thumb is that patterns in nature has this sort of trickling down effect. One kind of popular word in popular science is fractals, that basically we can find the same patterns on fine levels of nature and coarse levels of nature. So, for example, the veins in our bodies look like rivers, which in turn looks like the veins on a leaf, or the branches of a tree, or the streams in the oceans. So the same phenomenon is present when it comes to emotions. So if we have an emotional current happening on the global stage, then that will trickle down to our regions and to our local regions, and down to our families and our personal life as well. And the same is true the other way around. What is emotionally true for us on a personal level will affect the higher levels as well, the macro levels as well. So there's this constant wave-like influence up and down the hierarchy. So our third useful rule of thumb might be something like, when we look at news stories, global news stories, they will also show up in our personal lives. And how our personal life feels will also show itself on the global stage. These are sort of like mirror images of each other. What is most important to have in mind when we study patterns like this is that not to put too much value, not put too much emphasis on separate news or separate situations, to not judge things at face value too much, but rather to look at the undercurrents behind the news, behind our emotions, to look at trends and look at natural looking patterns. Our emotions will come and go like waves. We will group with people in a way that resembles nature. And the large levels and the small local levels will be in this constant conversation with one another. So it's sort of like to play music or to dance or to be present in a conversation with someone we love. That we have this sort of intuitive ebb and flow, this sort of intuitive conversation with the other. And this is the way to go about patterns, to sort of feel our way intuitively, to not try to be too smart, not try to be too intellectual, not try to stare too much at statistics, but more flow freely with whatever patterns are there. We know this is true, but it takes courage to lean into it, to trust it, especially in dangerous times, in scary times. It's very difficult to lean into this intuition, this sort of emotional intuition. There are individuals among us that have a real life experience of when these patterns of nature have a very real and tangible effect on our lives. And we will know these individuals by how they sort of there are no layers between them and the everyday life. They have this very engaged energy. They are very present. They are not necessarily always pleasant to be around, but these are individuals that are they care a lot, and they have real life experience of having to make life-altering decisions. And these individuals will become increasingly important as time goes on now. The point of trying to study patterns is not to try to find, it's not about trying to find the perfect solution. It's about sort of getting in touch with what is and getting a little better at accepting it. To somehow navigate these stormy weathers with a little more grace. Not perfect grace by any means, but a little more grace. A little more breathing space. A little more reassurance. I think that's it, what I wanted to speak about. Do you have anything you're wondering or thinking about?
No.
Thank you.